Hey, Facebook world. This is Kim, and this is,
Hello, Kevin.
and we are here to talk about a concept that I am researching about whether or not to put forward to create kind of a movement around it. I'll introduce myself first. I'm Kim Brown Sims, and all of you out there on my Facebook world know me probably from high school. I think the majority of my friends on Facebook are from high school. Um, and some of you are family, and some are new friends and folks that I've worked with as well. I've been a registered nurse for 35 years. And I think that's a thing that most people probably don't know about me is that I've been in leadership for 25 years and executive leadership for the last decade in hospitals, nonprofits, and startup companies. And I own my own consulting firm now called KBS Leadership Consulting, which is a Firelight Nursing Innovations Incorporated company. So I have a corporation, and I'm having fun with all this new stuff. This is the first time I've ever done anything like this, Facebook Live kind of thing. So, and then Kevin and I have known each other. I figured it out the other day since 1974. That's a long time. So since we were 8 years old, do you want to introduce yourself a little bit, Kev?
Sure, I'm Kevin Bowen. I'm her friend. And that's I've been in the hospitality industry uh, pretty much since 1985, 6, primarily in the Napa Valley, um, primarily in private dining, but also in restaurants. Currently the restaurant manager at Lucy Restaurant at the Bardessono Hotel.
We are sitting in my backyard in Napa,
Best office in the world.
best office in the world. COVID has had a couple of positive things, come out of it. One is that I do get to work from home quite a bit, and I do enjoy that. I enjoy sitting out here and being outside, which when you're in the corporate world, you're inside a whole lot. So sitting out in the backyard is kind of nice. And I will tell everybody again, I'm a nurse, and I am very focused on eradicating COVID. I opened a COVID alternate care facility in Sacramento on an interim nursing leadership assignment. So Kevin and I are 6 feet apart. We're outside. That's why we're not wearing our masks. I did bleach everything down out here prior to Kevin coming over for his safety. And we are both very cognizant of keeping one another and those that we love healthy. So I just wanted to start out with that little bit of conversation. So nothing formal about this. We're just going to chit chat a little bit, and we will just see where the conversation goes, how far it goes. So, I think let's stop first and just see if we're actually on Facebook, if we've actually launched it. You want to do that? Because I don't see the screen anymore. Do you?
I do not.
Okay, let's just go on Facebook real quick and see. Kim, I have no idea. How do you do that? How do you even go and check if you're live on Facebook?
I'm going on the Facebook Live page.
Okay, good. Do that.
Search for Kim Brown Sims.
Well, he knows how to do it more than I do, so
Well,
good.
we'll see if this works. Hey,
Are we there?
new movement development. It says we're live. Oh my God, I see us.
Oh, you see us.
So,
Kevin, yay! All right, all right. I can't believe old dogs, new tricks.
exactly.
I love it. I love it. So let's just talk a little bit about the concept of pricks, and one just being the title in and of itself, right? So I have to say, it creates some anxiety for me to even be talking about the word pricks as the title for a movement, Pricks Project, Overcoming Pricks, just pricks in general, because you just don't know how it's going to be received, which is a prick in and of itself that I would even care, what the general populace thought about kind of a new movement or a project that I wanted to put forward. But I have to say that's part of my upbringing in the corporate world. So, what do you, just off the top of your head, think about the concept of putting out something called pricks?
So, I don't think anyone else knows kind of the
The
background.
backstory.
Yeah. So the original title of the book and movement was Overcoming Pricks.
Right.
And the concern from others was that might be too
Feminist.
feminist. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, there's obviously that take on it, right? Because it sounds like, oh, she hates men, or there's some problem she's had with men, which is so not even the concept, but
Yeah, and so my initial thought, and I'm not sure if I said this out loud, was, well, that would make me stop
sure.
if I saw that on a bookshelf. That would make me stop and investigate further. And I said the same thing to my housemates, and they said the exact same thing. I said, what do you think about the and both my housemates, don't name them,
Yeah,
said, well, I'd certainly stop and take a look at the cover to see what the book is about. That's the point. You want an attention getter. You want an eye grab
right,
to get someone to stop and take notice. Um, and my other thought about that initially was, as we started to talk about, the concept, and your target audience was, well, really, if part of your audience thinks that males
right,
think that is too feminist, that's not really your audience anyway.
right,
So what's the concern? I do understand that if you're in a corporate setting, um, the term pricks is immediately has a negative connotation, but that's not where you are
right,
right now. You're not in a corporate setting. You're trying to start a movement. Trying to start a conversation,
right.
and that happens by getting someone's attention. So whether you call it just pricks or overcoming pricks or whatever variation
Pricks
on
Project.
the project,
Pricks.
yeah, I think that the idea is to get someone's attention immediately. So in that regard, I think that the word, the term, the title um, works.
Right. So I appreciate that. Oh, great. And can you hear in the background my automatic vacuum cleaner is emptying? So that's just perfect timing. Thanks for that. That's my Roomba. We call him Spoonie D because he stirs up the dirt. So, So I love that you put out there that it's an attention grabber because that's really the point. I've been a nurse for, like I said, 35 years. I've pricked a lot of people with needles and IV starts and blood draws, and so there's this whole kind of innuendo thing that happens around it. So there are a lot of stories related to um, my nursing world. There are stories you just cannot make up in healthcare, and I'm sure hospitality
And
too.
hospitality.
But the whole point in the pricks, like the whole concept in and of itself, is that we've all been pricked by certain aspects of life, right? So you can do a needle prick, someone actually said to me, a prick saved my life because we had to start an IV and he got IV antibiotics, which saved his life. He was septic. So there's that, kind of take on it, the medical take on it. There are the pricks, those individuals who just leave a mark on you. Everybody's encountered them. We all have stories. Every time I mention this concept to anybody, they all say, "Oh, I've got a story for you. I've encountered this." So there is that aspect of it, in a work setting, a relationship setting, just in the general population. And then there's also what I call the prick of just knowing better. Like, when you've been, so there's actually two aspects of this. When you're doing something that your gut says you shouldn't do, that's a prick. That's a big prick. And then, there's also when you encounter a situation that just doesn't, it just doesn't flow. It doesn't go, you know, I've got to do something different. And that's just the prick of knowing, right?
Well, as I thought more about how I wanted to add to this conversation, I was thinking about, as we sort of touched on last week, um, you just have pricks in life,
Yeah.
and it's really how do you respond to those pricks. So a prick can be loss of a loved one,
Yes.
um, loss of a relationship. It can be, and you can take that either way. How do you respond to that? Are you going to just wallow in the grief, or are you going to rise above?
Right.
So really, that's what I think this concept and conversation should be about.
Yeah.
It is overcoming pricks,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's a person or a situation. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting because when I first started thinking about this, kind of the way I started thinking about a podcast, and I'm doing this Facebook Live conversation with you just to see if the concept in and of itself resonates with people and, what kind of feedback we get. Kind of a test, right? A test of, is it something that people think would work, or is it just going to be like, oh no, Kim, don't go there, that kind of thing. But when I first started thinking about the concept of putting together a podcast, the idea would be to bring individuals on. Tucker wants to be in the he wants to be in the podcast too. He will. He'll be in your lap here shortly. So um, he's got his own Facebook page. I'm sorry, his own Instagram page, tucker.doodledog. So if anybody wants to check out an adorable little mini Labradoodle who now wants my attention, and probably Kevin's in a moment too. But the idea for the podcast was that you would invite someone on and they would tell you their story. You ask anybody, they've got a story about how they've been pricked. And ask them, how did you overcome it? What was your strategy for healing from whatever the prick was? And then back that up with research, because one of the things that I am Tucker, he likes to be the center of attention, this one. And that's okay. You want to be on the camera, we can pick you up. We can pick you up. And then to back up, the strategy that the person employed for overcoming it with research, because I think something that people don't know about me is that I sit on several boards, one being Mentis, which is a mental health nonprofit. I'm very much an advocate for mind-body medicine, which I've studied under Dr. James Gordon through the Center of Mind-Body Medicine. I'm working on a certification to become a mind-body medicine practitioner. I obviously have been in the medical field for all those years. And so there's a lot of not only experience, but a lot of literature and research that backs up what kind of the idea of what people do that has been documented, that's the right strategy to use, or there are different strategies you can use if you're stuck in a certain, frame of mind around a situation that's happened. And again, when I tell people that, they seem to enjoy the idea. So he's the best dog. Honestly, I absolutely love him. He likes to be, like I said, the center of attention, and he'll do anything to get your attention. And he has a lot of energy. And the haircut that's going on, I don't even know if the Facebook Live crowd can see this, but this is we call it the COVID haircut, because he looks adorable when his hair is all grown out. He looks like a teddy bear. But because it was so long in between grooming,
Yeah.
he got mats in places that we could not get the mats out. So he ended up just last week getting shaved down to the nubbins. So he looks a little less like a teddy bear right now, and I don't know what, like a rat dog, I think, is kind of what he looks like. Oh my goodness. Tucker? I'll show you people. So I guess part of the other conversation that we had not too long ago was the whole idea of, being afraid and being vulnerable and putting yourself out there. And something that resonated with me that you said was, if you feel like taking this step and creating this space and having a voice around things that people encounter and how they overcome them and how they apply the learnings from them to grow and move forward, if that doesn't resonate with people, and if it keeps you from being able to achieve other professional goals moving forward, is that professional goal something that's truly that valuable to you? Right. Do you really want to be amongst the individuals who, are ostracizing you because of that step that you took. And I think that's a really important point because I don't know about you, but I have worked a really long time to get to where I had gotten in my executive corporate world. And I was only able to achieve that by kind of fitting inside that box, so to speak. So I don't know. Do you want to expand on your thought on that at all?
Yeah, a couple of things. I think that you are by moving away from that, however you got to this point, starting your own company, your own
Hmm.
consulting business, doing the projects that you've done since leaving that world,
Hmm.
um, embarking on this new project. Um, you you've you've changed. You have entered a metamorphosis. Your goals are different than they were
Right,
even a year ago.
right.
So what does it matter if you're fitting into that box anymore? Why would you
Hmm.
even want to consider fitting into that box anymore? That you've broken out of that box. Why try and put yourself back into it?
Yeah.
Um, uh, on sort of a lighter note, this comes back to me all the time. Groucho Marx once said, "I would not want to be a member of any club that would have me as a member." So, uh, it's kind of one of those things that where you're heading is completely and radically different from where you were.
Right,
Um, and there's no need to. I mean, certainly, there are aspects of what you do as a professional
right.
that you need to maintain, but as a professional in what light?
Hmm.
Um, so, I mean, even our roles, me in hospitality and you in healthcare, we have different rules, I
Right,
guess, of behavior. So our professional standards are different
right,
because of our industries. You're kind of in a new industry. You're
right,
moving away from healthcare specific to leadership and talent development.
right,
Um, Certainly, still healthcare important, but not the defining nature of your
right.
work now. So it's a different box, but
It's a different box. Here's my reality in regard to that. As a as an executive leading by example and understanding that my success is really the talent, encouraging the talent and giving voice to the experts who actually do the work, I profess always, and I'm not an always and never kind of person, but always I profess authenticity.
yes,
And it is disingenuous for me as an executive to continue to function in a box
yes,
where I have to fit the mold of that box in order to succeed.
yes.
And that was a big part of the reason that I chose to step out into, the entrepreneurial world and start my own company is because as a leader, I want to influence other leaders
Two.
to be authentic and to be genuine. And I can't do that if I'm being disingenuous in the role that I play as a leader. So it's really up to me to create change at the highest level, to influence the change of leaders um, in understanding one, being genuine and admitting that you're fallible and asking for forgiveness if you do something that is not right. And then I don't mean right, I just mean something that harms someone or hurts someone or, um, you know, and understanding that perfection truly is a fallacy, and that what you do is you pull your group back together and you say that didn't come out the way we wanted it to come out. So what did we learn from it, and how can we move forward and apply that knowledge to a different, so that we can achieve a different outcome on the other end. And that's all very corporate speak, but what it boils down to is I have to be authentic in who I am in order to teach other people to lead that way.
That's Exactly. It's leading by example. What's
Mm,
the example you want to set? Is the example you want to set for others, particularly females,
right.
also potentially minorities.
Yes.
Female is a minority.
Right.
Um,
I don't know. I don't know if I need to get up and keep touching it or not, but I am oh, we have people. Oh, it says Mark says we can't hear you. Yes.
oh, maybe my thing. Let me switch.
No, actually put this one in.
Oh,
Put that one in.
I had so many good things.
You did have so many good things to say.
Can you hear me now? I'm
He'll let
looking at
us
the
know.
screen.
I can't see
See
the
if it's
screen from this. That's also being old like that. Let me get closer. I can't hear. Mark, tell us if you can hear Kevin now. So,
oh look,
oh, you can
let's
see
see.
things?
Mark can't hear him.
Okay.
Tammy Corioso is watching.
Oh my gosh, Tammy. I just adore that.
All right, let's see if this is working any better. I'm not going to repeat everything I just said. Um, let's see.
We were talking about being authentic,
Yeah.
right? And leading
Oh,
by example.
yeah. So, yeah, what's the authenticity? What's the leadership example you want to set? Is it being trying to fit into that corporate box or
Right.
breaking out of that corporate box?
Right. And saying that the corporate box needs to change. So the corporate box needs to change in more ways than one, right? The corporate box needs to reflect more and more. You can hear, they can hear now?
Yeah. Mark says I'm very faint. Very faint.
You're very
I
faint.
am very faint. Very faint. Selena says I heard them all along, but we can hear you more clearly.
Oh, okay. Well, I do have a louder voice. I think it's
I
been
will
that.
try to speak up there, Mark,
Yeah, you do speak softly, Kevin. You always
but I
have.
carry a big stick.
Even when we were in high school and we were doing the Romeo and Juliet soliloquy and being videotaped in English literature class, you spoke very softly, but it lent you very well to that role. Yeah. So back to what we were talking about, the whole idea of breaking the mold, um, and the whole leadership paradigm is that, and ironically, this is the motto of my company, which is changing the face of leadership, right? Because I really want to advocate for equality, diversity, inclusion, justice, and equity, equality
Yes.
and equity, a little bit different, but equity because anybody who has the talent, anybody who has the desire and takes the steps to learn should be given the opportunity to have access to that education to start with. They should be given equal opportunity to have a seat at the table. And even beyond that, once you're at the table, they should have the capability to have a voice that's heard and valued once at the table. And so, I really want, and I am working toward breaking down those barriers and advocating for those who haven't had that opportunity. And I'm working to create structure at the most basic levels to provide those access points, remove those obstacles. So, I'm being considered for the board of directors for a college, a university, a nursing university, and that will help me influence diversity and inclusion. As the president of Cal Diversity, Justice, Equity, Inclusion are huge on our agenda, as it is with the American College of Healthcare Executives. I'm participating on a board called Racism in Healthcare through the American Nursing Association, California. And it's just important for me to continue to raise these issues and to create, this voice for those whose voices haven't been, one, who haven't had a seat at the table, but two, even at the table, they haven't been heard. So, what are you smiling at over there? Who is texting you? You're putting on your reading glasses.
Holly Gregory says, "Love where this is going." Brene Brown, move over.
Holly Gregory, I love you, girl. And so Brene Brown is one of my the people that I really look up to because the whole idea of vulnerability and shame. So I'll share a story with you. I I left a job last year and the circumstances weren't necessarily great. And I felt a lot of shame over that. And it was just that I wasn't being seen as fitting into that box anymore.
Yeah.
But the reality is that I kind of got tired of fitting into that box and, needed to get out there and advocate for women and people of color, other minorities, because it's absolutely ludicrous that as healthcare providers in the systems that we serve, that we don't have the diverse representation at the table, and meaning the diverse representation of the people that we serve.
Right.
How can we serve them if we don't know what it is that they need? I just don't, to me, that is just beyond,
Yeah.
you know.
A couple of things. I do want to do some more shout outs here. I hate to switch subjects, but I really want to add this to the mix. We've been saying that about the police force.
Yeah.
For,
Yes.
if the police force does not represent, does not represent the community that they're serving in that same person, how can they really serve the
Right.
community?
Right.
They don't know what's going on. I think there's a little bit of that also. A few years ago, there was a report that came out that this was, actually, many years ago. It was after the last the Loma Prieta
Yes.
earthquake.
Yes.
And they were talking about the fact that they did not have emergency responders, first responders, in the city because they all lived outside the city because they couldn't afford to live in the city. So it took longer for first responders to respond,
Right.
if at all.
Right.
They couldn't get in the city. So I apologize. I've been not throwing out all these shout outs. So first off, Natalie Griffin.
Natalie is my leadership Napa Valley peer, and we were part of the practicum group. We got the S, and we were the founding members of the Senior Moments radio program that continues to play here in Napa every
Senior
Wednesday
Moments,
morning.
the way I think about it.
Yes,
Okay.
Senior Moments. It's really geared toward our senior population and the services that are available to them within the Napa Valley.
Okay. Lisa Garcia Mitchell is watching.
We know
Garcia
Lisa.
Mitchell's awesome. Tell me if I'm saying this right. Taisha Hunter.
Taisha Hunter is an absolutely amazing CEO of a mergers and acquisition company. She wants to change the way we provide care for our seniors who need to be in long-term care facilities.
She says, "Great day, Kim." Mentioned Mark Miller.
Yes, my amazing friend.
Taisha came back with the mark of a wise person is one that hurries to correct their mistakes. That was a comment based on what you said earlier.
Love
Selena Smith. I heard him all.
Oh yeah, yes.
Holly Gregory, Lois Going, Vanessa. Taisha came back with, yes, it's just having the opportunity, and at the same to be unapologetically myself. Same time.
Yep.
We like Taisha.
We like Taisha a lot. As a matter of fact, Taisha has played collegiate basketball. She was highly lauded. And she and I have talked about, so Taisha, let's just put this on the calendar. You're going to have to participate, and I'm figuring it out again. Old dogs, new tricks. I'm figuring out how to do a Zoom interview, then Facebook Live it. And so I think I can do that. I think I have the mechanism to do that. But Taisha and I have talked about using the philosophy of sports in how that develops people and leaders. And so we're probably going to do that topic too. We've talked about trying to put together presentations for conferences and the like. So you'd love her. She's amazing, wonderful. Have fun working with her. Oh, and this is Tucker. Look,
Tucker
see,
says hi too.
Tucker really wants to be involved in this conversation. Look at him. Look at him. Oh, you have a new friend, Kev.
He just needed space.
He just needed a little space. I have to scoot over frequently. I'm getting a little whiter in my old age. So, let's go ahead.
No, please.
No, go ahead.
So I was going to bring it back to the whole PRIX concept.
Yeah.
And, what that means to you, what the PRIX are in your life,
Mm-hmm.
or were
Right.
in your life, and why you want to embark on this particular journey.
I appreciate you asking that question actually, because we didn't really plan this except for to say we were going to talk about the concept of PRIX. So I actually started writing a book called Overcoming Pricks, and then I'm working with some really amazing people um, through a company called Thought Leadership Path. And they recommended kind of shortening it and just kind of going with pricks. And so, but anyway, back to the book. So I started writing the book because I wanted to tell the story. So the computer just went green. So can people tell? I mean, black. We're still, people can still see us. Okay. I don't have to get up and, okay. Um, so I started writing this book, and the whole story starts with me finding out that I was adopted when I was 32 years old. And every time I tell that story, people stop and they're just immediately sucked in. Um, I lived such an amazing childhood, incredible parents, lots of opportunity, so loved. I have a brother who was a huge pain in my butt throughout my entire childhood, but I love him more than life. We're super close, and we're even closer now after discovering that we were both adopted. He didn't know that he was adopted either. I hired a private investigator and have found my birth parents, and unfortunately, my birth father just passed away, but my birth mom is still alive, and I have an amazing relationship with her. But think about, you know, sitting, I'll just describe the scenario of how I found out. My mom had been diagnosed with cancer, and my dad and I were sitting out at Travis Air Force Base, outside of the mammography room. They were doing tests on my mom to validate what the primary tumor source was. Her cancer was lung cancer. And so they were doing a mammogram to see, did, was it in her breasts as well? Was that the primary source? Had it metastasized? My dad and I were sitting together, and I was reading her medical record. I'm a nurse, and so that's comfortable for me. And back then, so over 20 years ago, now almost 21 years ago, I'm reading the chart, and I'm just kind of flipping through it, and I just happened to stumble across the information that she had two live children who were adopted. And I turned to my dad and I said, "Pops, is this true?" And he was sitting with his arms crossed, because he's a big man. He was sitting with his arms crossed like this, and he looked over at me, and his face went as white as my pants, and he said, "Yep, it's true, and that's the way your mom wanted it." And I sat for a moment and I thought, And then I looked at him and I said, "Is Bobby my blood brother?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Well, that explains everything." And we laughed about it. And, it kind of just settled for a moment. And then I said, "Bobby's got to know, because if mom, doesn't have long in this world, then I can't be the only one with the information, because when it's all said and done, it's going to be he and I who are left. And I want to keep that relationship really strong." And I said, "So, you've got 6 months to tell him. If you don't tell him, I'm going to tell him." And subsequently, they didn't tell him, and I ended up telling him. And his first question was the same question I had: "Are we blood related?" Oh my God, that explains everything. So, that story in and of itself was a pretty big prick if you think about it. And, I'm very versed in the 5 stages of loss, right? Kubler-Ross. And those 5 stages, I went through them all pretty rapidly. And the reason that I was able to go through them so rapidly was because my mom was going to die. And none of the other stuff mattered at that point. My relationship with my mom, and that very precious time becomes very precious at the end. That very precious time for me was not going to be clouded by the what ifs and the could haves, it was, "You're my mom, and you chose me. You and dad chose me. You came into that orphanage." I was in an orphanage for 4 months before I was adopted. And, you said, "She's our girl," and took me and walked out with me without even signing the paperwork. They kind of had to run after my parents to sign the paperwork. And, so the fact that I had these amazing, wonderful, and loving parents allowed me to move through the stages pretty quickly. But, other people, it's not so easy. It's not so easy to receive shocking news like that it could trip you up. It could put you down this whole different path in your life. And so that was a pretty major prick for me. And I thought about that, again, in the context of being a nurse. When I've pricked people as a leader too. I haven't always been the most stellar leader, because we're human. And sometimes in that moment, we don't do a very good job. And so I apologize to anyone who I've ever pricked in the past. But there are people who have been major pricks to me as well. But that story of adoption was the thing that was the most telling.
Hmm. And so, when did it become clear that you needed to share this concept with others?
Oh, yeah. So here's the thing. I'm a woman and I've been an executive. I've been a leader for 25 years and I've been an executive for 10 years. And it seems that the idea that you hit your head on the glass ceiling is actually true. I've experienced personal microaggressions, discrimination, harassment for being a strong-minded and very vocal female. I have my shortcomings. I certainly don't do everything right all the time. Sometimes I speak out of turn. Like I really have a pretty high level of self-awareness of, what I need to focus on. But the reality is that, I've had some oppression in my life, and I just really want to pave the path for others to have it incrementally easier. And I look at my daughter and I think I have got to be that person that leads on her behalf. I mean, she is a professor at Sac State at 23 years old. And we actually had a conversation about ageism. And she's been very fortunate that she's been very supported, being so young, by her peers, her advisors, and so forth. And yet, I don't want her to experience any of what I have experienced in the past, whether that be a female leader or a male leader or whomever. I don't want her to hit that glass ceiling or feel oppressed or pushed into a corner or have had microaggression, or discrimination or anything like that.
Yeah.
I want to try and eradicate, that as much as possible. And I know it's a long road, but the time is so ripe for it.
Yeah. I I was going to say something way too positive.
No, go ahead.
No, it's about our world. I think that at least in my world and in my perspective, things are changing ever so gradually.
Yes.
But I think there's less of that today than there was certainly 30 years ago. Um, and I think it's being driven by the younger generation, but I'm glad that there are more mature voices speaking out also. Um, we came from a generation where uh, those divisions were still hummingbird.
That's my mom.
um, a generation where there was where racism, classism, uh, sexism were still very prevalent in our formative years, and there are many in our generation who, and I think it speaks to where we were raised, not certainly by whom we were raised, but also where we were raised, being Fairfield, so close to Travis Air Force Base, being such a melting pot.
Right.
I think we were very fortunate not to have it in our face on a daily basis, but it certainly was there.
Right.
Uh, so I'm glad that there are people of our generation like you that are speaking out about it, and trying to affect change on a greater than household scale. I did my best to raise my son in a way that he's not. Um, we talked about this, the whole colorblind concept.
Yes.
But I mean, in one sense, it does make sense. But I do see there's a bigger picture to that term. But he he does not project that sort of worldview. Um, uh, so um, yeah, I guess we just continue to work on it. small, you know, the village um, level,
Concept.
change our village, and change the world. Um, but a global voice, what you're trying to put forward with this concept, I think is really important, and should be applauded. Um, a couple more real quick. Taisha says, "Okay, Kim, I'm ready when it's time." And Timothy Bolton is now watching.
Hey, Timothy. See, I'm telling you, our whole high school crew is going to be on here shortly. This is great. I love it. I love it. And, they're of our generation. And yet, a big, to your point about younger generations, millennials, they're doing such a great job from what I've seen of saying, no, this is not okay. We need to level set. I even look at my daughter who's more Gen Z than millennial. She's a teacher of English second language learners, so TESOL, and she is looking at for her. She's going to go into her PhD program here in about a year, and she is really focused on contract-based grading, which eliminates all of those biases that are applied to the concept of grading in its most standard form, right? Because you're looking at the effort that's being applied, and versus have you had the privilege of having access to this level of education as a young person, so therefore you're going to get a better grade because you've had that opportunity. So I really look to the younger generation, and sharing the voice of how it has felt, I think, creates awareness and opens the door for the conversation, which is how the movement starts and how the movement continues to move forward. I have to say, this afternoon I was listening to a webinar that was hosted by the Wellbeing Trust, and we had the California Children's Trust. We had representatives from the California Children's Trust, and what they were saying about access to mental health care, which there is no good health unless you have good mental health as well. So I just want to throw that out there. When I was raised in nursing, it was mind, body, spirit, and somehow we got to pills and procedures. And we need to make our way back. But one of the concepts that was put forward to help eradicate the stigma around mental health and access to mental health care was to eliminate the need to have a formal diagnosis placed on you for you to be able to access care and for that care to be covered under your insurance. And obviously that's going to be a long, hard road for us to travel down. But again, putting the concept out there and having conversation about that aspect of how to access care is going to take us places that we've never even imagined going before. So what are some pricks that you've encountered in your life? I mean, we've had some of these conversations in the past, and it's always amazing to me. I'll just share that when you and I were sitting and talking about systemic racism and the need for us to overcome those, unconscious biases, when you shared with me the fact that when you shop, even to this day, you keep your hands in your pockets and you never take things off the shelf, it blew me away. Not on my radar in any way, shape, or form. And so I don't know, do you want to expand on why that is the way it is?
Yeah, I will. A couple things real quick.
Yeah.
Xiaomei Du Turner is now watching.
Hey, Xiaomei.
By the way, folks, you can ask questions.
Yeah, we're happy to.
See, Kim would love to answer your question.
No, Kevin will answer your question.
Taisha says effective change only comes when you can see things from another's perspective. And that will mean a type of deprogramming of many when it comes to people who are not like you and their backgrounds and upbringing are polar opposite of yours. Then we become relatable to one another. Great comment.
It
Thank
is.
you very much, Taisha. Natalie Griffin says, such a thoughtful conversation. Thank you for hosting, Kim. And Xiaomei says hi.
Oh, hey guys.
Yeah, the whole. So I think it starts. Do you remember Wonderworld?
I do remember Wonderworld. The reason I remember Wonderworld is my mom worked in a hair salon right across basically the parking lot from Wonderworld. So when I was walking to my mom's shop, which we did as kids after school, I would go into Wonderworld and get caramel corner. They had all kinds of crazy things in there. Yeah.
So Wonderworld was a sort of Was it the only? I don't. I
It
think it
was
was a
kind of a
standalone.
Kmart
Yeah,
before Kmart.
yeah. It's kind of a Kmart. Yeah, great example.
Oh,
So
wait, do people know what Kmart is? Target. It was a Target
Target. Yeah,
before Kmart
yeah.
before.
So we had this store in Fairfield called Wonder World, and a friend of mine, actually there were a group of us that collected these cool keychain um, guns
Hmm.
that um, shot uh, didn't shoot they like a pop.
Oh, a pop sound.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the pop
The caps, pop
caps.
caps.
Yeah,
Did you put the little paper with the spark powder in
yeah,
them?
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
they're cap guns.
Cap guns.
Cap
Yeah.
guns. Look at that.
Yes, we truly are rebels. So we had these cap guns, and there were several of us that collected these.
Right.
And so me and a friend of mine, I can say his first name, Ron,
Yes, you can.
were in Wonderworld looking at the cap guns, and I had several in my pocket that I owned, and I took them out to compare to see if I had this new one that I wanted to buy. And I did. So I put mine back in my pocket, and as we were leaving the store, security guard stopped me, held me in his office until the police arrived. And I was telling him, look at them. They've all been fired.
Right. I own
Um,
these.
yeah.
Yeah.
And just wouldn't believe me. And so that there was my one of my first bricks. Um, that encounter, being grilled by the security guard, being held against my will, and then having the police show up, who did, by the way, take the gun, sniff them, and could tell that they'd been fired and release me. It was just I've always been afraid of touching this on a store shelf, and being suspected of shoplifting. I've had other instances since then that have also left a bad taste in my mouth. But yeah, I when I shop, unless it's like a grocery store where the loaf of bread isn't going to fit in my pocket, I'm very very cautious about touching things on a shelf, and I do. I walk through most stores with my hands in my pocket, as a reason the aisles at the merchandise. So
And is that, I'll just ask the question plain and simple. Is it the fact that, you know, someone targeted you for potentially stealing directly related to the color of your skin
that's why
and they didn't pull him in?
they're not full run.
Yeah.
So and at that age, I was probably I don't know 10,
Hmm.
maybe 11, something like
Yeah.
that. It's pretty scarring.
It's
So
scarring. It creates that element of fear, right?
yeah,
And that's what you and I have been having conversation about is, and ironically enough, there's a book on the table that says, so you want to talk about race and white fragility, because I'm doing some research for the racism and healthcare task force that we're creating. But that, it's an important topic, like, the whole racial profiling, and they're going to pull you over if you're driving a nice car, because how can you as a black man have enough money to afford a nice car when, Lord forbid, so
she
many of
couldn't even.
my peers are, far and above more wealthy than I have ever dreamed of being. It just blows me out of the water that still in this day and age, the color of our skin dictates how we're treated,
Yeah,
or the fact that I'm female, or the fact that, someone doesn't speak our language doesn't mean our language, meaning English,
yeah,
um, doesn't mean they're any less intelligent
right, right.
or any less of a contributor to society, or any less, the person who cures cancer. It just blows me out of the water. And I feel fortunate to be of that mindset. Um, is there something you wanted to call up on the?
Oh, Wendy Ragland Unmuck just joined us and says hi, guys.
Oh my goodness, I love this. Hey, Wendy, is she local? She's in the South still, I think.
I don't know. Wendy, would you like to answer?
I think she's in the South, that she moved there not too long ago.
Nice.
Yeah.
South, like South, deep South.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I can't remember exactly which state.
Okay.
I think I want to say it was one of the Carolinas, but I'm sure she'll let us know.
She better now.
I
Call
know.
her up.
I know. I love it. So, I guess the question there is, there's that prick of oppression, right? That prick of fear, knowing that you could be called out just because of the color of your skin, or I could be called out because I'm a woman. It's that whole same kind of old adage of, if I say, we're going to lead this project and pulling these people together, and we're just going to knock it out of the park, where I'm being mouthy or bossy, another man is, a man, for instance, would be being a strong leader or advocating for his people or whatever. That whole concept is just something that needs to go away as well. That level setting needs to happen. So
the difference between the difference between being a strong female leader or a bitch.
Oh yeah. Bitch right here. I should have a mug. I think I need it like tattooed or something, because Lord knows I've been called that on more than one occasion. So anyway, well, Kevin, like, it's been 52 minutes we've been chatting about this topic. Really? Yeah. How fast does that go?
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool. I tell you what, so for those of you who are still watching, if you would please let us know if this topic of conversation, and if the idea of, a movement around pricks, the Pricks Project sounds enticing, if you think that it would be well received, or if you think that there's a platform for this type of conversation, please put it in the comments. Ask your friends about it, and shoot us a note either through Facebook, or some of you have our direct contact information. Please do let us know. You're welcome to share this conversation as well. I think you can share the link to the live cast. I'm not sure, because again, I'm still learning. Old dog, new trick. And it's not even that new. I'm just like not on the cutting edge when it comes to this technology. And then also let us know if you think, you would want to hear from us on a regular basis, because the whole idea is to move it forward with like a podcast, and potentially then from those stories, a book, about how we're all one people, and we all have commonality, and we really should be celebrating the gifts that we each possess instead of knocking each other down for our differences. Those differences make life beautiful.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
Drew Lane says, I'm in. Ben Richards says, aloha.
oh, so Ben is in Hawaii.
Okay.
Drew just moved here from the East Coast and worked with me at the Sleep Train Arena when I was opening the alternate care facility to care for COVID patients.
Nice.
Yeah, wonderful.
We reached a few people.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing. So, I don't know, Kevin, should we wrap it up?
I guess. Oh, wait. Hold on. Let's see if anybody else is in. Oh, Ben Richards says, thank you for hosting this.
Thanks, Ben, for tuning in. You've always been a great support, and I do appreciate you. And aloha to you as well. And when you come to the mainland, you better reach out, because it's not that far.
Oh, Taylor Lee Farrell says, love what you guys are doing.
Taylor Lee Farrell developed my website, so she's Let's Launch Now, and a dear friend from down in Atascadero, Central Coast. My heart's way down on the Central Coast as well. I'm looking forward to seeing her again. She did a fabulous job this morning on the Atascadero Chamber of Commerce. They have what they call a coffee talk. So she talked about the importance of websites for small businesses. So she did a great job there too. Shout out, Tay.
Yep, there you go. Yeah, I guess yeah, it's just trying to figure out what we do next.
We will figure out what we do next. Wednesday afternoons are open for Kevin and I. So we've talked about, doing this on a regular basis and kind of getting some momentum. So if you think that's a good idea, put that in the comments as well. And again, share this conversation, and thank you all for joining us. And we feel blessed and honored. And
one more from Taisha before we go.
Okay, what's Taisha say?
She's got a great question. Two great questions.
Oh, good.
How do we get people to just see one's gifts and talents rather than pieces of a social construct?
I love it.
And so me being assertive and firm is not seen as being a mouthy woman?
Oh, no, Taisha. That's why we get along so well. You are a strong leader. And that's the other thing that I say all the time, is that we're each leaders every day. Your title doesn't matter. You lead in your words and actions, acta non verba, actions, not words, but you lead by your words and actions every single day. So be that example, set the example for other people, to treat everyone with that same level of respect that you want to be treated with, but also ask them how do they want to be treated? Because I know the golden rule says, do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. But the reality is, the platinum rule is do unto others as they want you to do to them. Treat them with respect, call them by what they want to be called, give them a voice at the table, and honor what they bring to the table. And the other thing I'm going to say about leadership is that, if your team looks just like you're not leading a strong team. Your team needs to be diverse. It needs to be representative of those that you're serving. And you want people who are different than you, because that's what makes a well-rounded team. You want to pull in those voices of opposing opinions, because what ends up resulting is going to be far better. You're going to achieve the unimaginable, another one of my business taglines, because you just don't know what you can achieve if you're the only person at the table, or everyone at the table is got the same mindset that you do.
Yeah, I think what you're doing is exactly what Taisha is asking about, is about seeing each other, seeing everyone's gifts and talents.
Yes.
Shelmay says, yes, I would love that. So she wants us to continue this.
All right. Well, Kevin, are we on for next Wednesday then?
Yeah.
What do you got going next Wednesday? Anything?
Nope.
All right. Well, good. So I guess same bat channel, same bat time. Okay, our age is really showing. We'll be back out here. We'll talk about more pricks, and we'll see if we can't maybe we can get Taisha to join in.
Oh, yeah.
Wouldn't that be great? I'll try and figure out that technology. Or if any of you out there are gurus around the restreaming, I do own a Pro Zoom account, and my understanding is that Pro Zoom account can restream to Facebook Live, so that we can all be participating in the conversation. So if anybody out there is a guru around that and can lead this old dog down that road, I would love that. So please do reach out. All right.
All right. Well, thank you all for joining us. And yeah, I guess we'll see you next week.
We'll see you next week. All right. Love it. Bye, guys.